You're watching BCTV. We're all about Branford. You're watching BCTV, Branford Government Television, a service of Branford Community Television. This program is brought to you in part through the support of the town of Branford.
Okay, I've got 7:02. Let's call this meeting to order. I'd like to call the meeting to order. In accordance with the Governor of Lamont's Executive Order Number 7B for the protection of public health and safety during COVID-19 pandemic and response, the public meeting will be held remotely. Members of the public may attend the meeting via Zoom remote, accessed by the computer or by telephone as follows. All attendees must follow town meeting rules and cited in Chapter A2 of the Code of the Town of Branford. Speak when recognized by the moderator and speak on the subject under discussion or debate. To announce your intent to communicate during the public comment, use the raise hand feature or press 9 if attending via telephone, then 6 to unmute. When recognized by the moderator. All those recognized to speak must state their name each time they speak. Personal attacks on any person will not be tolerated and will be cause for the removal from the meeting without warning. The RTM will hold a Zoom meeting on Wednesday, March 10th, 2021 at 7 p.m. to consider and act on the following matters. Item number 1, roll call. Will the clerk please call the roll call?
Okay, good evening. Representative Edelman.
Representative Edelman is present.
Representative Atro.
Representative Atro present.
Representative Alphone.
Representative Alphone, present.
Representative Anderson.
Anderson is present.
Representative Black.
Representative Black, present.
Representative Brockett.
Representative Brockett, present.
Representative Conklin.
Representative Conklin is here.
Representative Everson.
Representative Everson, present.
Representative Erlanger.
Representative Erlanger, present.
Representative Flanagan.
Representative Flanagan here.
Representative Greenberg.
Representative Greenberg, present.
Representative Haken.
Representative Haken, present.
Representative Healy.
Representative Healy, present.
Representative Henschel.
Representative.
Representative Hines.
Representative Hines, present.
Representative Ingraham.
Ingraham, present.
Representative Jackson.
Representative Jackson is here.
Representative Blake is present. Representative Preet.
Representative Preet is present.
Representative Riccio.
Representative Riccio is present.
Representative Sember.
Representative Sember is present.
Representative Shrestha.
Representative Shrestha, present.
Representative Sires.
Representative Sires, present.
Representative Sumro.
Representative Sumro, present.
Representative Stepanik.
Jim Stepanik, present.
Representative Sullivan.
Representative Sullivan is here.
Representative Torelli.
Representative Torelli, present.
Representative Toohill.
Yeah, this is Representative Frank Toohill, present.
Representative Verderam.
Representative Verderam, present.
Representative Wells. Is Representative Wells present? Okay, I will mark him absent. As far as ex officios, a little help. I have to see who's here. I know Clerk Arpin is here.
Amy Cosgrove here's.
Thank you. And Selectman Dunbar here? No. Okay, that's it. All set.
Okay,
We
thank you.
have one absent.
Okay, Representative Flanagan here, thank you. Moving on, item 2, approval of the minutes of the previous meeting.
I make a motion to approve the minutes. This is Representative Atro.
Representative Torelli, I second it.
Representative Flanagan here, the motion to approve the minutes by Representative Atro, seconded by Representative Torelli. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
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 The opposed, Dennis.
Aye.
So the minutes are approved without exception. Item number 3, receptions of communications, reports of committees, and citizens petitions. I have one correspondence here. It's from the Chairman of the Board of Finance, Joseph Mooney. Attention, Dennis Flanagan, moderator. At the meeting of the Board of Finance held February 22nd, 2020, the following resolution was adopted. Resolve that the resolution entitled Resolution with respect to the authorization, issuance, and sale of not exceeding 24 million Town of Branford general obligations refunding bonds, authorizing combining into one issue and making determinations with the refunding bonds and other authorized but unused bonds of the town, and authorize agreements for the investment of refunding escrow and its reinvestment over its term. It is hereby adopted and recommended for approval by the representative town meeting. And I have nothing else under communications or reports. Representative Leach, do you have anything?
I do not have anything else.
Mr. Chair, this is Town Clerk Garp, and I just, for the record, want to say that Selectman Dunbar has just joined the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, Representative Flanagan, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 4, to consider and if appropriate, approve the acceptance of Cosgrove Court as a town road. Representative Alphone.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Admin Services met on March 2nd to hear this item at the request of the town engineer. Cosgrove Court was constructed with the intention of being a town road. It conforms to all the required standards of a town road. It is now the responsibility of the RTM to officially accept it. This was passed unanimously in committee with a 7-0 vote. I'd put that forward to the full RTM.
Okay, a motion on the floor to accept this item. Is there any discussion from members of the RTM? Is there any discussion from members of the public? Hearing none. Is there any no votes? Is there any no votes? The item is approved for the acceptance of Cosgrove Court as a town road.
Representative Flanagan, Representative Ingraham, please ask for abstentions.
Oh, yep, I always forget that. Any abstentions? Okay, again, this item is approved. Item number 5, to consider and if appropriate, create a blight ordinance for the town of Branford. Representative Black.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Ways and Means met on this and voted unanimously with one member absent to re-refer this. There's a working group that's still working on the ordinance for our consideration. So I put that in the form of a motion.
A motion on the floor to re-refer this item. Dennis Flanagan here. Is there any discussion from members of the RTM?
Yeah, I'm sorry. This is Representative Conklin. I have just one point, and that is that it wasn't at Ways and Means. It was R&O that approved that in subcommittee. Just for the record, Representative Leach.
Thank you, Representative Conklin. I get confused sometimes, but rules and ordinances. Okay, I'll try to know what committee what hat I'm wearing.
Okay, Representative Flanagan, any other discussion from members of the RTM? Okay, any discussion from members of the public?
Mr. Chair, there is a member from the public, Mr. Nichols, who has his hand up.
Mr. Nichols, would you like to speak to this item for the point of re-referral?
Yes. I'm just wondering, it's been roughly maybe 4 or 5 years since we've been trying to pass this, and I don't understand how we have still not come up with something. It's re-referred. As a joke, I was almost going to come on here as my name as re-referred because I already know what's going to happen. I'm just wondering how this cannot proceed after this. To figure out how to just make a blight law.
Representative Flanagan here. The motion on the floor, Mr. Nichols, is to further referral. So are you for or against the re-referral?
I mean, I'm against it, obviously, because I'd like to just see something happen for once. Get it done. Well,
Representative Flanagan, I know the committee's been working very feverishly on this, and it isn't something you just can do overnight. So I would presume we will definitely see something within the next month.
Okay, I'll take your word for it.
Okay. Any other discussions from members of the public? Hearing none? Hearing none? Representative Representative Flanagan, hearing none, is there any no votes? Is there any no votes? Is there any abstentions? This item is re-referred. Moving on to item 6, to consider if appropriate, create an ordinance pertaining to unused capital funds. Representative Black.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This is Representative Black. Again, rules and ordinances met and voted unanimously with one member absent to re-refer this item. I put that in the form of a motion.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Representative Flanagan here to re-refer this item. Is there any discussion from members of the RTM? Is there any discussion from members of the public? Hearing none? Is there any no votes? Is there any no votes? Is there any abstentions? Hearing none, this item is re-referred. Moving on to item 7, to consider and if appropriate, approve an amendment to chapter 223, vehicles and traffic of the town code. Representative Black.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This is Representative Black. Again, rules and ordinances met. We considered this ordinance. This should be up on your screen now, thanks to the town clerk. This went out to all members of the RTM on Sunday. By our rules, it should have been mailed 5 days before. I believe everybody's had a chance to review it. So at this point, I'd ask that we waive rule 4.45. So I'll put that in the form of a motion first to consider this.
Point of information, Mr. Moderator. This is Representative Everson.
Go ahead.
This was not publicly noticed in advance. So the public is seeing this for the first time. So I'm just wondering if that, to me, that makes a difference in terms of us considering it.
Representative Flanagan and Representative Black.
Through you, Mr. Moderator, this was posted with the agenda as required by the Freedom of Information Act. It was part of the supporting documents posted on the town's website. This will not take effect for about 2 weeks after we vote on it. Should somebody have a objection to it?
Representative Flanagan, thank you, Representative Black. Okay, continue, Representative Black.
Okay, so first I I'd ask for a vote on the waiving of Rule 4.45.
Is there Representative Flanagan, is there a second on that?
Representative, this is Representative Ingraham. Representative Black, what is 4.4?
Through you, Mr. Moderator, Rule 4.45 says that the motion should be, the ordinance should be mailed to the members 5 days prior. This was sent to the members via email 3 days prior, and I know all caucuses had a chance to review it. Thank you.
Okay, this is Representative Ingraham. I'll make the motion to waive Rule 445.
I'll second that, Representative Brockett.
Okay, motion on the floor has been seconded to waive Rule 4.45. I'm not sure if we actually need a roll call on this, but I'll do that just to make it official. Will the clerk please call a roll call vote on this?
Just for clarification, Representative Black made the motion to waive Rule 445. So I don't know. Then Representative Ingraham made a motion also. I just want to clarify.
I believe Representative Flanagan here, Representative Black did make the motion, and I believe it was seconded by Representative.
Okay. Okay, so roll call vote. Representative Edelman?
Representative Edelman votes yes.
Representative Acho?
Yes.
Representative Alphone?
Representative Alphone, yes.
Representative Anderson?
Representative Anderson votes yes.
Representative Black?
Representative Black votes yes.
Representative Brockett?
Representative Brockett votes yes.
Representative Conklin?
Representative Conklin votes yes.
Representative Everson? Representative Everson? I know she's here.
Yeah, sorry about that. I couldn't get to my mute.
That's okay.
Representative Everson, yes.
Representative Erlanger? Representative Erlanger?
Oh, Representative Erlanger votes yes.
Thank you. Representative Greenberg?
Representative Greenberg, yes.
Representative Haken?
Representative Haken, yes.
Representative Healy?
Representative Healy, yes.
Representative Henschel?
Representative Henschel, yes.
Representative Hines?
Representative Hines, yes.
Representative Ingraham?
Representative Ingraham, yes.
Representative Jackson?
Jackson, yes.
Representative Leach votes yes. Representative Preet?
Representative Preet votes yes.
Representative Riccio?
Representative Riccio votes yes.
Representative Sember?
Representative Sember votes yes.
Representative Shrestha?
Representative Shrestha votes yes.
Representative Sires?
Representative Sires votes yes.
Representative Sumro?
Representative Sumro, yes.
Representative Stepanik?
Jim Stepanik votes yes.
Representative Sullivan?
Representative Sullivan votes yes.
Representative Torelli?
Representative Torelli votes yes.
Representative Toohill?
This is Representative Toohill voting yes.
Representative Verderam?
Representative Verderam votes yes.
And Representative Wells is not present yet. Is that correct?
He's here, actually. He votes yes also. This is Representative Wells.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. Okay.
And
So
Donna,
we-
this is Lisa. For the record, he arrived at 7:16, if you need to know that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And it is unanimous.
Okay, unanimous. It's been approved. Representative Black, go ahead, continue your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This is Representative Black. So this ordinance, you can scroll up a little to the ordinance, Lisa, or what the ordinance does is it just empowers the Board of Selectmen to adopt regulations for municipally owned parking lots. This would include the Stony Creek parking lot by the former St. Teresa's Church, the fire station there, as well as the Monowese and South Main Street parking lot and the municipal parking lots behind the stores on Main Street near the center of town, and perhaps any other parking lots. There's no specific regulations in this. Our goal is to try to get this through so that we can have regulations before the summer season for Stony Creek in particular. Again, this was approved unanimously by Rules and Ordinances with one member present, so I put that in the form of a motion. It's been approved by the town attorney as well.
Motion on the floor to approve this item. Is there any discussion from members of the RTM? Is there any discussion from members of the public? Hearing none. Is there any no votes? Is there any no votes? Is there any abstentions? Hearing none, this item passes. Moving on to item 8, to consider and if appropriate, approve an amendment to RTM Rule A 236-1 or Clerk A 236-2. Representative Black.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Those numbers that you rattled off, those are for the website. The actual rule numbers are Rule 2.4 for the clerk and Rule 4.3 for committees. And the language is up there. What these do is make our rules comport with the Freedom of Information Act, shortening the time for the clerk to get the minutes out from 14 days to 7 days, and adding a requirement for a clerk being appointed for each committee with similar responsibilities. Again, these were approved by Rules and Ordinances unanimously with one member absent. So I put that in the form of a motion.
Motion on the floor to approve this item. Is there any discussion from members of the RTM? Is there any discussion from members of the public? Hearing none. Is there any no votes? Is there any no votes? Is there any abstentions? The item passes. Moving on to item number 9, letters and petitions, R&O, letters and requests to review the Code of Ethics. Representative Black.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This is Representative Black. R&O met items 9, 10, and 11. We voted unanimously to re-refer. So I'll put that in the form of a motion. Again, it was unanimous with one member absent from the committee. So for purposes of just expediting the meeting, I'd make that into one motion for items 9, 10, and 11. And that's the Code of Ethics, the disestablishment of the Water Commission, and repeal of the ordinance on piggeries.
Motion, there's a motion on the floor for item 9, 10, and 11 for re-referral. Is there any discussion from members of the RTM? Is there any discussion from members of the public? Hearing none. Is there any no votes? Is there any no votes? Is there any abstentions? All 3 items are hereby re-referred. Moving on to item 12, to consider and if appropriate, approve a resolution pertaining to insurrection. Representative Brockett.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I would put this in the form of a motion, and then I would ask the moderator if the motion is seconded to be recognized to speak on it.
Okay, so your motion on the floor is to approve the resolution. Is there a second?
This is Representative
I'll second that.
Sullivan. I'll second it.
And seconded by Representative Sullivan. Okay, is there discussion on the item from members of the RTM?
Representative Brockett would like to speak on the motion, Mr. Moderator.
Senator Flanagan, go ahead, Mr. Representative Brockett.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Moderator. I want to begin by reviewing the short procedural history of this resolution. Initially, it was our desire to put this resolution on the agenda for the January meeting. However, that was a special meeting and nothing could be added to the agenda. It was sent to the moderator for inclusion on the February agenda. However, I was informed that because the agenda had already gone to print, it could not be included. Therefore, we made a motion at the February RTM meeting to have it included on the agenda. That motion was not successful. As the merits of the resolution have not been discussed, it's therefore before the body tonight. Before I actually discuss the resolution briefly, I want to talk about two items. The first is when this resolution was asked to be put on the agenda at the February RTM meeting, no debate was allowed. That was flatly wrong in accordance with Robert's Rules of Order, and in my view, that was a form of censoring free speech. Second, when there was some discussion under other business with respect to this resolution, Representative Sullivan, Representative Zatro, and Representative Conklin were afforded the opportunity to speak to the resolution briefly, but Representative Riccio was abruptly cut off. That too, Mr. Moderator, was wrong, and that was another form of censoring free speech. Free speech is paramount to democracy. I reached out to Representative Riccio with respect to this issue, and I think everybody should have the right to speak at a meeting. As to the resolution itself, you will hear two arguments that speak against this resolution tonight. The first, it will be couched in the terms of a national issue and therefore should not be on our agenda as we discuss only Branford issues. In my view, that is simply a convenient way of avoiding the content of the resolution. In fact, this very body has addressed resolutions in the past such as this. There was a toll resolution that was addressed. There was a Blue Lives Matter resolution that was addressed. There was a gas line across Long Island Sound that was addressed. None of those were exclusively Branford issues. Furthermore, we are the elected leaders of the town, and our constituents have a right to know where our elected leaders stand. The central issue in this resolution is democracy, and I would strongly argue that saving our democracy is an important issue. You will also hear issues that draw a comparison to the protest over the summer and the riot on our Capitol. Let me be clear, they are not the same. My colleagues will offer some examples, but I'll give two brief examples. One, on the one hand, the insurrection of January 6th was a movement that led to an intentional direct attack on our democratic institutions with the goal of overturning a fair and free election. It was a clear and direct violation of the Constitution of the United States of America. On the other hand, the nationwide protests were a movement demanding an end to systemic racism and social adjustments in accordance with the Constitution that gives them that right. The second example, the insurrection was a violent assault on the Capitol, fueled by rhetoric to fight, an attempt to overthrow our government, kill political leaders, and end our republic as we know it. It was a direct assault on democracy. It was based on months of lies and conspiracy theories. On the other hand, 93% of the protests were nonviolent. It was a demand on our government to live up to the plain language of the Constitution of the United States. Those that engaged in violence are being rightly prosecuted. I urge you to adopt this resolution. This is not a Democratic issue. This is not a Republican issue. This is not a red issue. This is not a blue issue. This is an American issue. It's about our democracy. When the enemy is outside our borders, our veterans, some of them who are in this very room, acted courageously and bravely and did not hesitate to defend this great nation. Thank you so much to our veterans. When the enemy is from within, we must have the courage and conviction to stand up to them as well. Simply stated, we can now not allow attacks on our democracy. As American citizens and duly elected local leaders, We have a duty to speak up when there is harm to our democracy. There can be no question that on January 6, 2021, our democracy was in peril. I urge you to support this resolution. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Representative Flanagan here. Is there any other discussion from members of the RTM?
Representative Ingraham?
Representative Ingraham, go ahead.
Yes, Representative Ingraham, I stand opposed to this resolution. These items that are national outside of Branford, we've learned over the last year, do not belong on our agenda. These are items that are being brought to us seeking to divide us, seeking to have one side pitted against the other. It's exactly why you put these types of things together, especially when you don't reach out, you don't try to bring in other members to construct a resolution. So I'll be short. I'm against this resolution. It should not be put before us. It's only meant to divide us, and I hope it doesn't. Thank you.
Representative Flanagan here. Any other members of the RTM wishing to speak to this item?
Representative Edelman.
Representative Edelman, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I think that this resolution and the vote on this resolution that I support is seeking to unite us in support of democracy. We are an elected body performing a democratic democracy function. And any attack upon that process, whether it be at the local, state, or federal level, is an attack on the process that we are carrying out as this body. So unlike my esteemed opponent's wording just uttered, I think this is an attempt for unity, for all of us to unite and stick up for the democratic process of this country, and to not let some type of insurrection come in during the functioning of that democracy, the constitutional functioning of that democracy, to be thwarted by intimidation and threats of harm and hanging people and killing people, et cetera. So I strongly support this motion and echo the thoughts of the Minority Leader, Representative Brockett. Thank you.
Representative Flanagan here. Any other members of the RTM wishing to speak to this?
Representative Atro, I would like to speak. I agree that happened was a horrible, horrible thing. It should never have happened in our country. However, if we're going to vote on all the horrible things that are going on in Washington and across the country, like I said before, it is not for this body to do it. We cannot change it. We cannot do anything about it. So I would not support this, and I'm going to vote no, because it's not an item that belongs on our agenda. We should be addressing Branford issues and Branford issues only. I was not on this body when the other motions were put as far as Black Lives Matter, the gas line across Long Island, and I would oppose those because that was not associated with this body. Maybe the gas line might have had an effect on Branford. Maybe that would have something we supported. However, I do not support every time somebody has something that they don't like that went on in Washington, we put it before us and we vote on it. So I'm going to vote no to this.
Thank you. Representative Flanagan. Any other members of the RTM wishing to speak?
Representative Torelli? Yes. I just like to say, you wonder why the public despise politicians, because they don't make a stand. They're afraid to tell people how they really feel because they don't want to be voted down. Bipartisan, as far as I'm concerned, is non-existent. This is an issue where we should stand together. I mean, was it wrong? Absolutely. Are we sticking by political lines just because we don't want to make a decision? Wrong is wrong. It was against the law of some of the things that they did. And I can see why Washington is such a mess down there, because they can't make a stand either. They're strictly by their political lines. It's ridiculous. I mean, if you're afraid to choose one side or the other, then abstain. But it's a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned. And if you can't vote one side or the other, then you don't belong in politics.
Representative Flanagan here, or anybody else from the RTM wishing to speak? Representative Sullivan, I see your hand is up.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. First, I'd like to thank you for actually putting this resolution on the agenda for this meeting, Mr. Moderator. Thank you for doing that. And I wanted to be clear for everybody on the body and anybody watching this meeting what this resolution is actually asking for. And I'll read the last part of it to be on the record. Now, therefore, we, the elected members of the Branford R.T.M, do wholeheartedly condemn these violent actions and rioting that amount to insurrection against our government and an attempt to overrule the will of the people of our nation, the United States of America. If that's not unifying, I'm not sure what else could be. And I'd also like to point out, resolutions are non-binding by definition. So this seems to be something we should be able to get behind. And I also believe that it's important for us as leaders to be clear that we stand for the process of our government and for fair elections and against the white supremacy that was on show at the insurrection on January 6th. And I'll just read a couple of my comments. Some of this I read at the last meeting, but I'll still say this and some more. Tonight, we can take action to condemn the insurrectionists of January 6th. We can stand up to those in our nation who most want to tear our government down, silence the voices of tens of millions of American voters, and use violence to attempt to overturn a free electoral process. During the insurrection of January 6th, items in our Capitol were destroyed, stolen, and vandalized by insurrectionists. The Confederate flag was joyfully paraded down the halls of our Capitol. Multiple groups supporting white supremacy proudly showed their symbols, flags, and badges. Now, as Representative Brockett mentioned, there are those that will conflate the protest for Black Lives Matter with the insurrection of January 6th. The protesters fighting against systemic racism and the murder of citizens by police as part of Black Lives Matter are not anywhere close to the same as insurrectionists whose objective was to disrupt and overturn our election result. To conflate these two events as the same thing is a gross exaggeration and an extreme example of false equivalency. Watch the videos online. Learn about the flags being flown at the insurrection, the flag supporting white supremacy, of created nations where women and people of color have no right, and of course, the Confederacy. All of these flags are prevalent in the crowd. These are not the groups I would want to be allied with when my name goes down in the history books. So I ask that tonight my colleagues support the resolution language that was put forth by Representative Brockett. And those are the end of my comments, but I actually have a quote that I'd like to read from somebody else who is well known in Branford. I'll put it that way. And his quote is, "It is a false equivalence comparing the attack on the Capitol incited by the president, enjoyed by the president, carried out by those he would repeatedly praise after, even as he delayed hours in calling it off despite the pressure from his family, close allies, and staff, to the BLM rallies, a response to a murder where criminals used the rallies as an excuse for crime. The mob, incited by Trump, marched to the Capitol, calling for the hanging of the vice president and the Speaker of the House on false claims repeated ad nauseum by the president. The capital of our country, the very physical structure where democracy starts, was attacked at the whim of the President of the United States. Comparing it to any other rally or march is absurd." And that is a quote from Steve Mazzacane, who I don't think is on the meeting tonight, but I just wanted to read that into the record as well. I thought it was interesting what his thoughts and opinions were on this matter. So again, I'd ask for everybody on the RTM to come together and stand up and say that we are opposed to the insurrection on January 6th. Thank you.
Hey, any other members of the RTM wishing?
Mr. Moderator, you have Representative Healy, Anderson, and Leach. Their hands up.
And Henschel.
And I see Representative Henschel. So let's do Representative Healy first.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Frustrated. Third year here. Very proud of what's been going on in Branford in general. But I'm calling it out. This is not about national versus Branford for me. This is not about me making a stand on a decision or not. This is not, for me, about denouncing the act. There's not a single person, I believe, in this room on the call that would not denounce the act. What's next? A resolution about the sun rising in the east? We all know that was a terrible thing. But I will tell you what I believe that this is about. One word: fear-mongering. This is a typical Democratic ploy to get their constituents to the polls, to tie us local Republicans to those acts that occurred up on the Capitol, to Donald Trump. I am disgusted and appalled that they would even try to attempt to tie us to this, because we are definitely denouncing the act. The resolution does not need to occur to continue to try to tie us local Republicans to white supremacists. You should be embarrassed and ashamed of yourselves. I am a wholeheartedly no. Come on, come on. I'm done with this. I'm a no.
Representative Flanagan here. I believe you say Representative Ingraham. We had Representative Anderson and
Anderson, Leach, Henschel.
Anderson, Leach, Henschel. Okay, Representative Anderson, go ahead.
This is Representative Anderson. If in the future, if someone wants me to back a resolution on a thought process, I would appreciate a phone call and a discussion, and to not assume that I'm just going to get on board with whatever your issue is. Nobody called me. Nobody asked me my opinion. Nobody asked me to anything at all. And to think I'm just going to vote for whatever you want, I would appreciate a phone call next time. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Representative Flanagan here. Representative Leach.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So I am really new on the RTM, as you all know, and maybe a bit naive. I wore red and blue intentionally tonight because my statement is not in any way partisan. So it's brief, and I'll just go on the record. Democracy to me is the most precious thing that we have. I support the resolution without any partisan intention, believe that or not. The insurrection that took place on January 6th ignited fear about my country that I never imagined I would experience. Suddenly, our democracy appeared fragile, no longer infallible. The idea that democracy in America is not a guarantee and is an unacceptable idea to me. As an elected official, we are all the products of democracy. So I feel it is our obligation to vote in favor of this resolution for that reason. This resolution speaks to my desire to live in a democratic country without fear that it could be overthrown by American insurgents. I urge every RTM member, blue or red, to support this resolution as a nonpartisan statement in support of democracy. Thank you.
Representative Flanagan here. Representative Henschel. Representative, okay.
Yep. On January 6th, we came within a hair's breadth, literally seconds, of losing a vice president, of losing a speaker of a house, of having the country potentially thrown into martial law, and having, as has been said many times, having our democracy not only be fragile, but be broken. I just wonder if that had happened, if we hadn't been so lucky as to have those people in Congress whisked out of the way and just in time, and the worst had happened, where would we all be today? What would we be talking about today? Where would Branford be today as a community? It would be frightening. It would be terrifying. I think we would be in a totally different place than in talking about different things tonight. So this to me is about as important as an issue can get. And the idea that the Democrats are putting this up for a vote in an effort to divide, to pander, to get votes in our local election and to divide Democrats and Republicans, I think is literally crazy, because all of us would love to have everybody on the RTM vote in favor of this. And if everybody on the RTM voted in favor of this, it certainly would do nothing to drive local election votes one way or the other. That's just not an argument for or against this. But I think that why this is so different than everything else that has happened is the fact that the stakes were so high and the consequences to the very core of what we all believe were so much at stake. So I don't expect people to vote for this, but I sure as hell wish you would.
Thank you, Representative. Anyone else?
I think Representative Riccio unmuted. He might want to speak.
Thank you, Representative Ingram. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. First of all, I'd like to just thank Representative Brockett for being concerned that my freedom of speech was denied last meeting, and thank you for the note that you sent to me. And trust me, I've taken that up with the moderator. Hopefully he will not cut me off tonight, although potentially with what I'm about to say, he might. In the 10 years serving on this body, this is the most self-serving resolution the Democratic Party has ever put forward. First, and I think everyone will agree with what I'm about to say, there's not one person on this body that approved the events that took place in Washington, D.C. on January 6th. But if you want to condemn the actions that took place on January 6th, you're not going far enough. Why aren't you condemning the shootings that take place in Chicago every day, and probably that day, by the way, which is run by a Democrat party? You need to condemn the riots and property damages that took place this past summer in Wisconsin, Portland, Atlanta, New York City, and other cities. Why are you not condemning, Mr. Representative Brockett, the protesters that stopped traffic on Interstate 95 and other interstates this past summer, interfering with innocent people trying to go to work or drive home, or maybe even possibly interfering with someone taking a family member to a hospital? The riots that took place in 140 cities in 20 states this past summer became the costliest civil disorder ever in the United States, and will cost hardworking American taxpayers $1 to $2 billion. But maybe, Representative Brockett, you don't care what it costs taxpayers, do you? The question, though, is why are you singling out just one protest? Why? I'll tell you why. It is my opinion, and I have the right to my opinion, because you've decided to run for first selectman in November. You want to get your name on the front page of the Branford Sound newspaper. Let's be honest. That is the only reason and motive that you're taking the time and getting your colleagues behind this proposal. What are you going to do in November or October? Say Mark Riccio voted against condemning what happened January 6th? Does that mean I'm a white supremacist? Well, Representative Brockett, if you're going to run for first selectman, I respectfully suggest you read the Branford Charter and understand the legislative responsibilities of the RTM body, which are found on page C2. And there's not one sentence that talks about we have the right to condemn what took place nationally. It's just wrong what you're trying to do. And let me remind you, our job on this body is to approve new ordinances, make changes to existing ordinances. We're responsible for the town of Branford budget items, in approving the budget and approving Town of Branford real estate transaction purchases. You and your colleagues have made this political. I am voting against this resolution because this resolution has nothing to do with the town of Branford. It does not belong on the RTM agenda. Let's focus on the needs of Branford citizens. If you want to talk about something other than the 3 items I just mentioned above, our purview, our time could be better served by talking about how the Cosgrove administration is helping Branford citizens, including myself, scheduling COVID-19 vaccinations, or the needs of our police and fire department, or the needs of the Branford Library. I respectfully request that you don't waste our time over the next 8 months with political, motivated campaign talk. Thank you.
Representative.
Flanagan, you have Representative Schumro, and a second time for Representative Edelman.
Okay, Representative Schumro, go ahead.
So, this is Sumro from District 4. When it was happened, January 6th, I was in office, and my husband means when he messaged me, the one thing only comes in my mind. Everyone knows that I'm immigrant. I'm living last 20 years here. I don't think so that in any Asian countries, if I can give some names, then it happened like that. I immediately comes in my mind that if our capital, our legislators, our democracy, our people in our they are in that building, if they are not safe, then nobody in this country is safe. And I believe democracy, and I think we should support. It is not about the party line. Nobody is talking about here that Democrat or Republican. We are just talking about the wrong things. It happened, and I'm speaking as a human and an immigrant, that it was domestic terrorist attack. And just think about it. If someone outsider can attack on our capital, how we react? I think we react in the different way. So I really support in this resolutions, and I say that everyone should support this. Thank you.
Okay, Representative Flanagan here. That I represent Edelman. Did you have your hand up?
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson, Mr. Moderator. The problem here is that the other side and certain individuals are trivializing what happened. To compare storming a Capitol during a constitutionally mandated count of the people's will to recognize the votes for the candidacy of the President of the United States to property damage being caused by protests, or people crossing I-95, or the sun rising in the east, they're not on the same level playing field. It's trivializing what happened. So all the talk about you condemn what happened and you don't support what happened, here's your time to say so. It is the functioning of the role of government that was attempted to be thwarted. We are a role of government performing a function of government. And to Representative Henschel's point, would we be having this conversation if the police were 3 minutes late and the vice president was killed? We wouldn't be having this conversation. So you can talk all you want about, you condemn the actions of what occurred. Here's your chance to stand up for principle. It's not a blue or red thing. It's not a Republican or Democrat thing. There's a vote that can be had in front of us all now, standing up for principle. It was said, well, what are we going to do? Have a proclamation for everything that occurs in Washington? This isn't similar to everything that's occurred in Washington. It shouldn't be trivialized as this. So it's time to stand up for principle. You know, there's nothing wrong with doing that for a non-binding proclamation. So people can stand up and be counted for how they feel. And I think that it's not transparent to hide behind. It's not the work of Branford. Anybody can come up with a underlying intelligent rationale as why this body politic could opine on this and fit within the confines of what our role is as a legislative body. Thank you.
Representative Flanagan.
Representative Flanagan, you have Representative Black and Representative Jackson.
Hey, Representative Black, go ahead.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Moderator. First of all, to those thinking that our democracy was at stake, I really don't believe that our democracy is that fragile. We've survived over 200 years, and I think we'll survive this. Democracy went forward. It's resilient. It's not dependent on a particular time or place. And the other thing that other point, as far as calling this an insurrection, that's a very specific legal charge. The Biden Justice Department can charge folks with insurrection. They can charge the former president with incitement to insurrection if they wish and if they believe that. I'm very uncomfortable making specific legal judgments about insurrection or murder. I also think nobody's in any way I certainly don't believe this is at all equivalent to the peaceful protests. And I was as much disturbed by the loss of the Cub supermarket in Minneapolis, creating a food desert there. We go forward. I don't believe so much in symbolism. I took an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States, and that's a bunch of ideas, not a place. It's not things. So that's what I've got to say for now. Thank you very much.
Okay, Representative Flanagan here. Representative Ingraham, did you say Representative Jackson had his hand up?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This is Representative Jackson. I don't have much to say. I think Representative Brockett said it particularly well. But the one thing that I would like to refute maybe is the idea that we in Branford deal with Branford issues and not national issues. And on the face of it, that sounds pretty good, except that when I thought about this, and I thought about the possible effect of an insurrection, meaning that the election of a president, whether we wanted him or not, would be overthrown by some nefarious means, which would I think would have a great impact on Branford, would it not? I mean, in Branford, we voted, and we could wake up in the morning and find that our vote was nullified. And I think that just sort of puts an exclamation point on what some people have been saying about how important this is relative to all the other more trivial acts. Yes, when somebody's murdered in Chicago, that's not a reason for us to have a resolution in our town, but this is not the same, and we damn well know it. And in fact, what's being politicized here is an emulation of what's happening in Washington. And there's really no reason that I can think of that what happened on January 6th wouldn't be thoroughly condemned in Washington, but it doesn't seem to be. Anyway, that's, I don't mean to be more contentious than is necessary, but thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Hey, Representative Flanagan here. Anyone else from the RTM wishing to speak?
I see no other hands up, Mr. Moderator. Representative Abraham. You have two citizens with their hands up, Mr. Petrowski and Mr. Nichols.
Okay, Representative Flanagan here. Mr. Petrowski?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'm going to be brief here. I would just like to touch on what Representative Brockett stated earlier about the, people being able to talk and being censored. That's been an issue for a couple months now. I'm glad at least it came out. And number two, this is going to throw everybody for a loop. But I agree with Representative Ingraham, and I agree with Representative Riccio. I just wish Representative Riccio would have went a little farther and said, what about when the police station got assaulted and burned down? There was no resolution about that. Those are national issues. I get that people got a problem with it. I understand it. But we got enough problems here in town that I need to be worried about. And who even knows, chances are, is what came out in the papers. And it's a shame that we're even wasting our time on this subject. Those people were now Democrats in disguise as Republicans, and you want us to have some kind of resolution. I think it's a waste of time. And I agree with the Republicans 100%. You already lost. You're going to lose again. Let it die. Move on. Tomorrow's another day. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Okay, Representative Flanagan here. Mr. Nichols. Mr. Nichols?
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you, Mr. Nichols. Go ahead.
Okay, well, I'm just wondering, so Mr. Sullivan made a statement from Steve Mazzacane, basically that the former president, Mr. Trump, called for the killing of the vice president. I would like to see some type of proof, not an interpretation, proof where he said out of his mouth. There's got to be video if you're quoting Steve Mazzacane, because we all know he's totally right, where he said, go kill the vice president, for one. For two, how many people were killed by Black Lives Matter? What about the ambush down in Texas when 5 police officers that keep you safe, I get you want to defund them, I get it, keep you safe, were ambushed? What about their families? What about their kids? What about their daughters, their sons, their grandkids, and everyone else? Nobody cares. Then what about, in all reality, what about the truck driver during the Rodney King? You want to go back? Let's go back. What about the guy? He was in a truck driving a tractor trailer. And we've seen this on the news with Black Lives Matter. Pull the guy out and beat him nearly to death. But that's okay, because that's Black Lives Matter. That's not justice. That's not law. That's just, it is what it is. And then on top of that, how about who our former president 2-3 years, I'm sorry, not 2-3 years, 2-3 years, presidents ago, who did he pardon? Rosenberg? Didn't they go there to blow the Capitol up back in the 80s? So if you're going to talk facts, we need to speak facts. And we need to see both sides, is what I'm trying to say. It's not just what's happening now. It's what's happening over the years. And I have the utmost respect for Mr. Brock. The points are, you can't just take what's going on now. You have to look at it all. And if you're going to hold now guilty, you have to hold then guilty. But who gets pardoned for something like that? That's all I have to say.
Hey, anyone else from the public? This is Representative Flanagan. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak?
Representative Abraham. Yeah, there you go.
Who's that?
Mike Perricone.
Okay, Mr. Perricone, go ahead.
How are you?
All right.
Yeah, I just want to thank Representatives Riccio, Healy, and Black for trying to talk some sense tonight. On the other hand, Representative Brockett, Sullivan, and Edelman have successfully made themselves look like idiots who just watch 5 minutes of CNN to get their talking points across. Very embarrassing, guys. Do a little bit more homework. A 5-year-old could have came across with your talking points. And I just think it just showed how ignorant you really are. And
Representative Flanagan, please remind the speaker of our rules about attacking members.
Representative Flanagan.
Oh, well, I'm done anyway, so we're good. Thanks.
All right. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak?
Yeah, Representative Black.
He's RTM. Representative Black, you want to speak again?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Moderator. It's Representative Black. Just for the record and for, I think it was Mr. Petrowski, regarding the 5 officers who were assassinated in Dallas, we did pass a resolution essentially in response to that by a voice vote shortly after that. So we did respond. That's one of the resolutions that's been referenced here. Mr. Kineski came in and asked us to pass essentially a Blue Lives Matter resolution. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else wishing to speak from the public of RTM or RTM, I should say? If not, this is Representative Flanagan. This will require a roll call vote. A vote of yes supports the resolution. A vote of no does not support the resolution. The clerk will call on this item.
Okay, this is Representative Leach. Representative Edelman,
Yes. Representative Edelman, excuse me. Yes.
Representative Atro,
No.
Representative Alphone,
Representative Alphone, no.
Representative Anderson,
Representative Anderson is no.
Representative Black,
Representative Black, no.
Representative Brockett,
Representative Brockett votes yes.
Representative Conklin,
Representative Conklin, as a 4th-generation military personnel who have actively protected democracy and the United States Constitution, votes no.
Representative Everson,
Representative Everson votes yes to democracy.
Representative Erlanger,
Representative Erlanger, yes.
Representative Greenberg,
Representative Greenberg, no.
Representative Haken,
Representative Haken, yes.
Representative Healy,
Representative Healy, wholeheartedly no.
Representative Henschel,
Representative Henschel, yes.
Representative Hines,
Representative Hines is no.
Representative Ingraham,
Representative Ingram's no.
Representative Jackson,
Representative Jackson, yes.
Representative Leach is yes. Representative Preet,
Representative Preet is no.
Representative Riccio,
Representative Riccio votes no.
Representative Semper,
Representative Semper votes yes.
Representative Shrestha,
Representative Shrestha votes yes.
Representative Sires,
Representative Sires votes no.
Representative Sumro,
Representative Sumro, yes.
Representative Stepanek,
Jim Stepanek votes no.
Representative Sullivan,
Representative Sullivan votes yes.
Representative Torelli,
Representative Torelli votes yes.
Representative Toohill,
This is Representative Frank Toohill voting no.
Representative Verderam,
Representative Verderam votes no.
Representative Wells.
Representative Wells votes no.
Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we have 13 to 17. 17 yes.
I think that's
Mr. Moderator.
Flip.
I just wanted to give the correct. I mean,
16,
I don't know.
it's 16. 16.
I was just going to say, what was these figures again, Representative Flanagan? Any no votes?
It's 16 yes, 13 no.
Point of information.
No, I think it's 16 no.
Flipped.
I move for a recount.
I'm sorry. Yes,
Incorrect.
You're right. I was wearing my blue shirt, sorry.
So how
Oh,
many,
no.
So it is 16 no, 13 yes.
okay.
This is Representative Ingram. Representative Leach, who do you have as absent?
No one. Moderator Flanagan does not vote.
Representative Ingraham forgot his math.
Okay.
Okay, so Representative Flanagan here, the resolution is defeated. Moving on to item number 13, to hear a request from the James Blackstone Memorial Library for replacement of the havoc chiller and dust cleaning. This request is accompanied by a request to establish a sinking fund pursuant to approval of the following resolution. Resolved that the RTM authorizes the establishment of the James Blackstone Memorial Library Sinking Fund, which will initially be funded through a contribution from the library. Representative Preet.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Education Subcommittee met remotely on March 1st. At that time, Finance Director Jim Finch gave a thorough explanation of these items, replacement of the HVAC chiller and duct cleaning, and the establishment of a sinking fund for the Blackstone Library. The sinking fund will be established and initially funded by the Blackstone Library. This fund is needed in order for the library to meet challenges of future large recurring costs and help to keep the endowment sustainable. The fund will be managed by the town, with the library identifying projects for its use. So basically what's going to transpire should we pass this tonight is that the town will establish a controlled sinking fund similar to what we use for the fire department and the police department for vehicles. And this will be for the benefit of the Blackstone Library. The library will initially fund it by writing a check to the town for approximately $100,000. The town will then reimburse the library once this work is completed and an invoice is presented. The committee approved this 6-0 with one member being absent, and I'll put that before the body. But Mr. Moderator, if I may just make a comment before we begin debate.
Go ahead.
I think it's important for the members to know before we vote on this that in the past 6 to 8 months, there's been an effort underway under the guidance of the first selectman, Finance Director Finch, Jeff Follett, and members of the Branford Blackstone Board of Trustees. And these efforts are underway in trying to create a more collaborative environment between the library and the town, trying to create ensuing transparency between the library and the town, and to move forward with keeping the library's endowment sustainable. I applaud their efforts. I appreciate their efforts, and I'm urging this body to please pass this motion. Thank you.
Representative Flanagan here. There's a motion on the floor to approve this item. Is there any discussion from members of the RTM? Is there any discussion from members of the public? Hearing
Yeah,
none.
Mr. Nichols. Sorry.
Mr. Nichols, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. Go ahead, Mr. Nichols.
I'm just wondering when we're going to stop bleeding to this library. I can do on my phone anything that's in that library. When are we going to stop the bleeding? We are spending taxpayers' dollars left and right for no reason. You don't have 100 parking spots there. How many people per day go to that library? There's no reason to. You do it on your phone or you do it on your computer. When are we going to wake up? I get the building needs what it needs. But at the end of the day, it's us, the taxpayers, paying for it. We need to cut our ties. You know what? You guys want to pay the $100 grand? Go ahead. You do a fundraiser. Do what you have to do. Kids' sports don't get in this town what that library's getting. Let's realize that. And with that, I'm done.
Representative Flanagan here. Anyone else wishing to speak to this item?
Yeah, Representative H.R., just to clarify, we're not giving them $100. They're giving us $100 to put it in the sinking fund. And then that $100 is going to come out of that sinking fund and pay for their capital improvement. So it's not like the town is now giving them an extra $100,000. And the sinking fund, what I can understand of it, is not a bad idea, because what it does is it takes the bumps out of the road during the budget. Because there's certain capital or large ticket items that we have in each department that come due. And you don't want to have it like 1 year you got 2 or 3 large capital or big ticket items in 1 year that really hurts the tax base. What you do have is some money in a fund that builds up, and as you need it, it is then used. It's almost like I live in a condo and you have money in condo fees to estimate when roofs are going to be done. So you put so much a year in that fund, you want roads, so much in that fund. And then when they're due, you have the money so you don't have to bond it. So I agree with you a lot on what you're saying as far as how much we spend on that library. However, this is not the case here. It's money from them, putting it in a fund, and then going back to that to pay for that cooler and duct cleaning. Just for clarification.
In here, I think Representative Priest stated this is no different than the police or fire department having a sinking fund also. Anyone else?
Mr. Moderator.
Representative Wells. Representative Wells, go ahead.
Representative Wells and Representative Riccio.
Okay. Representative Wells.
Yeah, this is Representative Wells. I just want to say that I support this, as I believe most people do. I believe the people at the library and the library has done a remarkable job in serving the people of Branford throughout this pandemic. To say you can do everything on your phone that you can do in a library is not a valid comment. They're finding ways to get people books that they need to get that they can't necessarily find anywhere else. They're finding ways to let people come into the building and just, peruse some stuff if they need to in a very conscious, socially distanced manner. And in addition to that, pre-pandemic and hopefully again post-pandemic, the library gets used. I forget the exact numbers, but it's in the hundreds of people a day. It's not like 3 people go there. It's probably the most used building in the town. So I want to say that, for some reason, whenever the library gets brought, I mean, we pass resolutions to spend millions of dollars on things in less time than we spend over $25,000 to the library or $100,000 to the library. And it doesn't make sense. I guess if you don't go, you don't go, and that's fine. But the people of Branford have a tremendous treasure in that building and in that staff, and they need to be supported. Thank you.
Representative Flanagan here. Did you say that Representative Riccio was looking to speak to this? Representative Riccio?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Historically, as I served on this body, I voted against a number of initiatives for the town library. That's pretty well known, mainly because I thought the money that was being spent was too much money. But I still think we need to support our library, our beautiful library. Otherwise, if we don't keep it maintained, it's going to really be a bad situation down the road, and we don't want that. A couple of things. I think we really need to thank Representative Preet, who really took the initiative to get the library folks communicating with the RTM body, because there was certainly a divide in a lot of miscommunication and maybe even misinformation that was going back and forth between the RTM or between the library and the RTM body. So I want to thank Representative Preet for taking the initiative and getting that done. And I think the relationship between the library and the RTM is very good right now. There's a lot of positive communication and working together. But Mr. Nichols, I've had some of the same concerns that you've had of the usage, and there's a lot of people that do think the way you do, saying, why are we spending so much money on a brick and mortar, environment? And as Mr. Wells has said, there are some really good uses for the library, and I feel we need to support the library. So I will be voting for this. And as Representative Atro said, we need to budget for the future so that we don't have these huge spends that we get hit with. So that money is put aside, just the way we do it with the police department, the fire department, and other departments in town, where they have a sinking fund set up. It's almost like a savings account, so that we've got money put aside for large capital expenditures. Thank you.
Anyone else from the RTM, from the public wishing to speak?
You have Mr. Petrowski, Mr. Nichols, and Mr. Slicka.
All right, Mr. Petrowski, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Moderator. The library is a great thing in town, but again, you got to ask yourself, what's the relevance of it? I mean, again, and I know people say, I could find out if I wanted a list of RTM members, I Google it and it comes up with your addresses and everything. The library, to me, I think is an older, I don't mean this in any disrespect. I think that's an older person's thing from back when in the day. Today's kids are on the computer. How much money do we going to continue to sink into a beautiful building that should have never been touched in the first place? It's a gorgeous building. It's a staple of town. I get it. But enough's enough with the library. I mean, we gotta kind of do something there where you're gonna keep throwing money into it. I mean, how many people right now, well, I mean, the library is closed now. How many kids actually use that? How many people go and get a book? You could get it online for $1, which is cheaper than a library card. At some point, we got to say, let's move on. Thank you.
Okay, Representative Flanagan here. We have, let's see, Mr. Nichols again?
Yes. I just, can you hear me?
Go ahead.
I just happened to Google because I was told I was wrong. Well, 1882 literature. The story without a name comes up. The Revolution of Men. Like, I'm being told I'm wrong, but I just did it on my phone, and that's from 1882. Books from back then. So tell me how I'm wrong. This guy wants to spit what he wants to spit, but in all reality, ask him how many parking spaces are there, because I know he doesn't, and I don't know who it was that spoke, but in all reality, you're not having 100 people come through that door, because I'll go sit there for a week and with a clicker just to prove my point. I'll spend 10 grand on $100 solution. That's just how I am. So don't tell me that I'm wrong. I did it on my phone. You can do it from a computer. It happens. Let's stop spending the money and bleeding ourselves to death. That's what we're doing. We don't spend this money on sports, and it should be spent on sports. Bottom line, these kids don't even have fields to play on. You have a lacrosse field in the middle of a dog park. I mean, come on. What is going on here? Thank God my kids are out of here. But I just don't understand this whole mentality of, well, here's 5.2 million. Here's this. Here's that. Oh, here's another 100 grand to clean the ducks. Clean them yourself. It's not that hard. Thank you.
All right, Representative Ingraham, what was the other person?
Mr. Slicka.
Okay. Mr. Slicker?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'm here as the Assistant Treasurer of the Blackstone, and delighted to say that I agree with Representative Riccio. Representative Preet deserves a great deal of credit in helping to ameliorate the various relationships, the Board of Trustees of the Blackstone, in conducting their self-evaluation last year, realized that we needed to do a better job of communicating. And before we could take the first step, Mr. Preet suggested a meeting with President of the Library Law, Frank Toohill, and myself. And just to identify one small detail, at that meeting, which happened last July, in response to a concern raised by Mr. Toohill, we agreed to have a meeting that would give him additional insight into the budget process. And even though there's been a change in personnel, we made that meeting available to Mr. Preet and Mr. Vallette, so that there would be some additional ability to ask questions and some additional transparency. So the other thing that we are intending to communicate better, frankly, is the value of the vast range of services that we provide. It is certainly true that we provide the ability to borrow books, but those of you who've been paying attention to the vast range of online programming that the library provides, services to children learning to read, and to retirees needing advice about their situations, the library does a vast number of things in addition to providing books. I like to say we love all our children equally. We are not Democratic or Republican. We are mindful of taxpayer dollars. And I think everybody on the call wants a great library run with fiscal responsibility. I think that's true of staff, trustees, taxpayers, and patrons. And that's what we're striving to do. Thank you.
Representative Flanagan here. Okay, anybody else from the RTM wishing to speak to this item?
This Representative Schumer has her hand up.
This is Sumro from District 4. Hello.
Go ahead, Representative Sumro.
Yes. First of all, I am not agree with that kids are not using the library. I think I'm giving myself as an example that I moved here in Branford because of the library and schools. So my elder son, he is 20 years old, and he is using library and books. Whenever he says, means it's not only me, it's so many other Branford families, they are using the library. Even though in this pandemic, they are provided their services. So please, if you don't support it, that's fine. But don't say that library is not usable. Nobody is using library. No. I support this. I always support library and education. So I'm with them.
Okay,
Thank you.
Representative Flanagan. Anyone else wishing to speak to this item?
Yeah, Representative Flanagan, this is Representative Preet again.
Go ahead, Representative Preet.
Thank you. This is Representative Preet. As I used to tell my boss when I worked, I take criticism better than compliments. So I appreciate the comments that were made by Mark, Representative Riccio, and Mr. Spilka. But as I said in my comments before we got into the discussion, this has been a team effort, and it's really been with the guidance of our first selectman and finance director. And to try and put at ease some of the comments coming from the public, that's the reason that we're all working together to ensure that we don't waste money foolishly with the Blackstone. So what we've done and what we chose to do is to rather get into a back and forth that did nobody any really good last year, was we decided to come together and work together. And as I said, in a more collaborative environment. So when you say we're wasting money, I have to, respectfully disagree. When we have, our administration, the RTM, the Board of Finance, and the finance director all working in conjunction with the library and going over some of their wants and asks and helping with develop their budget this year. So that's just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Hey, Representative Flanagan here. Thank you, Representative Preet. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Representative Flanagan, you have Mr. Petrowski for a second time and Mr. Nichols, which would be a third time.
Mr. Nichols has already spoken on this twice, so on the Robert's rules, he's done. Mr. Petrowski, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I forgot to say in my last thing is that also we need to remember that the high school has a library, the intermediate school has a library, and all of our elementary schools have libraries as well. And there's also a library in Stony Creek. And I believe that there's enough for the children. I went to Sliney School. I went to the intermediate school, which had a huge library, as well as the high school, which had a very good library as well. So, I mean, I don't think there's any shortage of information in the school system for children. I think it's very well. I think the Board of Ed does a good job with providing children with books and information that we need to go along. And I just forgot to say that in my last thing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Petrowski. Representative Flanagan here. Okay, I guess anybody else from the RTM or from the public who has not spoken?
There are no hands up.
Okay. We're going to vote on this. Is there any no votes? Is there any no votes? Is there any abstentions? This item passes. Moving on to item 14, to consider and act upon the following proposed $24 million refunding bond resolution. Resolved that the resolution entitled Resolution in Respect to the Authorization, Issuance, and Sale of Not Exceeding $24 million Town of Branford General Obligations Refunding Bonds, authorizing combining into one issue and making determinations with the refunding bonds any other authorized but unused bonds of the town, and authorizing agreements for the investment of refunding escrow and its reinvestment over its term, is hereby adopted and recommended for approval by the representative town meeting. Representative Black.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This Representative Black, Ways and Means met on this. And first, I'll ask for a waiving of the reading of the full resolution. The full resolution has been emailed to all members. It's also been on the town website along with the agenda. So I put that in the form of a motion.
I'll Moderator, this Representative Ingraham, I'll make the motion to waive the reading of the full resolution.
Seconded, Representative Brockett.
I believe Representative Black made the motion. It was seconded by Representative Brockett.
Whatever motion. You need.
So let's, to make it uniform on this, let's do a roll call vote to waive the reading of the complete resolution. Will the clerk please do the roll call? This will be the motion by Representative Black to waive Rule 441 for the reading of the complete resolution.
Okay. Representative Edelman.
Representative Edelman, yes.
Representative Atro.
Representative Atro, yes.
Representative Alphone.
Representative Alphone, yes.
Representative Anderson.
Representative Anderson, yes.
Representative Black.
Representative Black, yes.
Representative Brockett.
Representative Brockett, yes.
Representative Conklin.
Representative Conklin, yes.
Representative Everson. Representative Everson.
I don't see her.
I don't see her out there. Why don't you continue?
Okay. Representative Erlanger.
Representative Erlanger votes yes.
Representative Greenberg.
Representative Greenberg, yes.
Representative Haken.
Representative Haken, yes.
Representative Healy.
Representative Healy abstains.
Representative Henschel.
Representative Henschel, yes.
Representative Hines.
Representative Hines is yes.
Representative Ingraham.
Representative Ingraham, yes.
Representative Jackson.
Jackson, yes.
Representative Leach is yes. Representative Preet.
Representative Preet is yes.
Representative Riccio.
Representative Riccio votes yes.
Representative Sember.
Representative Sember votes yes.
Representative Shrestha.
Shrestha votes yes.
Representative Sires, Representative Sires. I see her on the call. Representative Sires. I'll come back. Representative Sumro,
Representative Sumro, yes.
Representative Stepanik,
Stepanik is yes.
Representative Sullivan,
Representative Sullivan votes yes.
Representative Torelli, Representative Torelli.
Representative Torelli votes yes.
Thank you. Representative Toohill,
This is Representative Toohill voting yes.
Representative Verderheim,
Representative Verderheim votes yes.
Representative Wells.
Representative Wells votes yes.
Okay. And I will go back to Representative Sires.
Representative Everson's on also.
Yeah.
Representative Everson,
Sorry, I lost my connection. Representative Everson votes yes.
thank you. And Representative Sires, is she here? Okay.
Yes, Representative Sires is here.
Okay, do you vote yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we have one abstain and the rest yes.
Okay, the waiving of the reading of the resolution has been waived. Representative Black, go ahead and continue.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So this is a refunding resolution. What's a little different about this resolution from other resolutions that we passed for refunding or refinancing when interest rates drop and we can save a little money by refinancing at a lower rate is that these bonds do not have a call date until 2023. What that means is if we refinance them now under the presence law, it's called pre-refunding, and the refinancing bonds that we'd issue would be taxable. There's a possibility that this will change. In any case, if we need to issue taxable bonds, we save about $800,000, or rather close to $900,000, $884,000 over the life of the bonds. If we're able, through a legislative change, to issue tax-exempt bonds, we save $1.8 million over the life of the bond. So what will happen is we authorize this, and the finance director will wait for an opportune time to see if legislation goes through Congress or if interest rates are moving against us. Right now, they've jumped up a little bit, but seem to have plateaued. Again, this is an opportunity to save the town some money. Ways and Means heard this and voted unanimously in favor of it. So therefore, I put that in the form of a motion to approve this refunding. Thank you.
Motion on the floor to approve this refunding. Any discussion from members of the RTM? Any discussion from members of the public?
There are no hands up.
No hands up. Okay. Are there any no votes? Are there any no votes? Are there any abstentions? Hearing none, this item.
Mr. Moderator, this is Representative Black. Seeing as this is a bond resolution, this really is where we probably should take a roll call vote.
Okay, Representative Flanagan here. Okay, Representative Black, I agree with that. Representative Leach will have a roll call vote on this. A yes vote is in favor. A no vote is we're against.
Okay. Representative Edelman,
Representative Edelman, yes.
Representative Atro,
Representative Atro, yes.
Representative Alphone,
Representative Alphone, yes.
Representative Anderson,
Representative Anderson, yes.
Representative Black,
Representative Black, yes.
Representative Brockett,
Representative Brockett votes yes.
Representative Conklin,
Representative Conklin votes yes.
Representative Everson,
Representative Everson votes yes.
Representative Erlanger,
Representative Erlanger, yes.
Representative Greenberg,
Representative Greenberg, yes.
Representative Hagan,
Representative Haken, yes.
Representative Healy,
Representative Healy, yes.
Representative Henschel,
Representative Henschel, yes.
Representative Hines,
Representative Hines is yes.
Representative Ingraham,
Representative Ingraham, yes.
Representative Jackson,
Jackson, yes.
Representative Leach is yes. Representative Preet,
Representative Preet is yes.
Representative Ricchio,
Representative Ricchio votes yes.
Representative Sember,
Representative Sember votes yes.
Representative Shrestha,
Representative Shrestha votes yes.
Representative Sires,
Representative Sires, yes.
Representative Sumro,
Representative Sumro, yes.
Representative Stepanik,
Stepanik is yes.
Representative Sullivan,
Representative Sullivan votes yes.
Representative Torelli,
Representative Torelli votes yes.
Representative Toohill,
This is Representative Frank Toohill voting yes.
Representative Verderam,
Representative Verderam votes yes.
Representative Wells.
Representative Wells votes yes.
Okay, it is unanimous.
Okay, the bonding resolution passes. Item 15, any other business to come before the RTM?
Mr. Moderator, this is Representative Preet.
Representative Preet, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This is Representative Preet. In an effort to continue what I mentioned before about having some transparency between the Blackstone Library and the RTM, I was asked a few months ago to act as the liaison between the RTM and the Blackstone. So I thought it would be prudent to report out on some of the activities that are taking place with the library so that this body can be kept up to date on what's going on there. So just a couple of things that I wanted to report out on. The library has received a written confirmation from the Guilford Savings Bank that their PPP loan of $171,000 has been forgiven, and a substantial portion of that will be used to fund the sinking fund that we discussed and voted on earlier this evening. There was a generous anonymous gift, and at the request of the donor, that gift will go into their investment account. At the last meeting, the Blackstone's fiscal year 2021-2022 budget was presented. There was a lengthy discussion. Their aim this year is to accomplish three things, and that is to create a sinking fund, which we established tonight, maintain a sustainable endowment, and to establish this as a reset year for their budget. The Education Committee will hear the budget next month as we start the budget process, as well as all the subcommittees. The roof repair is complete, and plans are moving forward for a spring fundraiser. Also, this June 17th will mark the 125th anniversary of the library. There's a committee being formed to acknowledge this important milestone and set some events up. And I'm happy to let everyone know, I found out this morning from the director that the library is now open on a regular basis. on regular hours, Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. and Fridays and Saturdays from 9 to 5. However, it will remain closed on Sundays. And as a final note, I just wanted to congratulate you, Mr. Moderator, on your award from the Elks and on the very flattering article about you in this week's Sound. Thank you.
Representative Flanagan, thank you very much, Representative Preet.
Here, here.
Is there any other business to come before the RTM?
Yeah,
Yes.
Mr. Nichols' hand up, and then Representative Everson also.
Representative Everson, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. For those who may be watching this on television who may not have a computer because maybe they can't afford one or it's difficult for them to navigate it, I just wanted to let them know that you can call an 800 number to assist you with booking a COVID vaccine. And that number is 877-918-2224. Again, we have many seniors in our community, and I'm sure any of us would be willing to assist them if necessary in helping to make that happen if they've not been able to. But again, you can book your COVID vaccine by dialing the 877-918-2224. Thank you.
Representative Flanagan here. Thank you, Representative Everson.
Mr. Moderator? This is, yes. Thank you, Lisa Arpin. I just want to piggyback onto what Tracy just mentioned, that seniors also may call our senior center to ask for assistance with their vaccine scheduling. Thank you.
Okay, Representative Flanagan here. I believe Nichols has
Representative Flanagan, may I make a comment or two?
Yeah. Hold on one second. Mr. Nichols has something, I believe.
Sure.
No, I guess he's not there. Okay. Representative Riccio, go ahead.
Yeah, just 2 points. First, I actually, the town helped me today get a scheduled COVID vaccination for this week at Branford Hospice. And I'd like to thank Dagmar over at the Senior Center to help coordinate that for me. And the other point I want to make is Representative Everson, I'm glad to see that you're taking on my recommendation that we talk about other important town of Branford items in news that I talked about earlier this evening. I commend you.
Any other?
I'm confused. I've been here, but all I hear is echoes.
Who's speaking? Representative Flanagan here.
This is Mr. Nichols, Brian Nichols.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Nichols.
I wanted to speak to basically what Mr. Pre had to say. Can you hear me?
Is this pertaining to the library?
Well, this is pertaining to the new issues that were just brought up. So I'm allowed to speak again.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Nichols.
Okay, so the PPE was forgiven. That's payroll protection. 1. 2, through you, Mr. Moderator, I'd like Mr. Preet to answer right now. How many parking spaces are at Blackstone Library? Now, my next question is this. What's the capacity of that building? And how is the social distancing working there? So the capacity has to be at less than 50%. So those are my questions. And I'd like Mr. Preet just to answer how many parking spaces are there? Thank you.
Representative Flanagan to Representative Preet.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This is Representative Preet. To answer Mr. Nichols' questions, I have no idea, but if he'd like, I'd be happy to go down and count them tomorrow and let him know how many parking spaces are there. As far as the social distancing, I think you're going to have to talk to someone at the library. I'm not sure what the capacity is and what the governor has offered up for the library, and I'm sure they're following the guidelines of the state.
Thank you, Representative Flanagan. Thank you, Representative Preet. All right, if there's no other business to come before the RTM, Representative Torelli,
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
is there a second?
Second.
I'm able to speak again.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 We are adjourned.
Freedom of speech.
Aye.
This program was brought to you in part through the support of the Town of Branford. Watch town meetings and other videos on demand at BranfordTV.org.